They called it the greatest World Cup ever before a single ball was kicked. The biggest, the most watched, the most expensive ever made. Now it's finally here, and the opening weekend is always the same thing for any World Cup, its first real test. So let's ask the honest question. In these opening days, is the 2026 World Cup living up to the hype or not? The tournament opened in Mexico City, with the United States and Canada following, and the first full slate of matches landing across America. 3 countries, 16 cities, the largest World Cup ever staged, 48 teams and 104 matches. The promises were enormous. So we're going to do something simple. Grade the opening on 4 things: the crowds, the cost, the experience, and the spectacle. Honestly, on what's real. And let's be fair from the start. A weekend isn't the whole tournament. Problems get fixed, crowds grow, the football improves. This isn't a final verdict. It's a first impression report card. So here's where the hype is meeting reality. Start with the crowds. The promise was packed stadiums and record attendance. Back in 1994, the last time America hosted, the World Cup broke every attendance record it had ever set, and FIFA promised 2026 would go bigger. And the opener answered the call, Mexico beating South Africa 2-0 in front of a roaring Azteca, exactly the wall of noise a World Cup is supposed to start with. But here's the test that really matters in these opening days, and it's one most fans don't understand. At a modern World Cup, sold out does not mean full. A match can be announced as a complete sellout and still show empty seats on television. Why? Because thousands of seats are locked up for corporate hospitality and sponsors. Because dynamic pricings pushes last-minute resale and no-shows. And because the priciest sections are often the emptiest of all. So the real crowd test isn't the ticket report. It's the camera at kickoff, the upper decks, the corners, the seats behind the goal. That's the honest gauge. And it's the one to keep watching. Next, the cost, where the hype met the wallet. The promise was tickets starting from $60, a World Cup for everyone. The reality is the most expensive World Cup ever made. 2026 is the first to use dynamic pricing. Prices that move with demand, the same system airlines and concert tickets use, and at an event with near infinite demand, that only meant one direction, up. By early June, the average cheapest group stage ticket was sitting around 440 in Boys Fall for Stees, with the best seats running into the thousands. There is one piece of good news. As reality set in, resale prices for group stage matches fell more than 20% in a single month. But make no mistake, when the cheapest seats cost hundreds and the prime seats cost thousands, a lot of ordinary fans are simply priced out, and the seats they would have filled are exactly the ones the cameras find. Third, the experience of actually being there, because a World Cup isn't just 90 minutes. It's getting to the stadium, through the gates, and home again. And here the warning signs were flashing before kickoff. The train to the final stadium at MetLife was priced at $150 on MatchTraws, a trip that normally costs about $13, before public anger forced it down to $98. In Los Angeles, the traffic around the stadium is its own event. And then there's the heat. Matches in Houston and Dallas are being played under roofs for a reason, while open-air venues and outdoor fan zones bake in the North American summer. The football was always going to be the easy part. Moving millions of people across 3 enormous countries in June and July never was. And finally, the spectacle, the reason we forgive everything else. On pure scale, 2026 is staggering. 48 teams, the most ever. Tiny Curaçao, with a population of around 150,000, became the smallest nations in history to reach a World Cup. The biggest stars of a generation are here for what may be their final act on this stage. And the football, when it truly gets going, has a way of making everything else wait. If 2026 has one guaranteed strength, it's this. The show itself is enormous. But here's something worth sitting with before we add it all up. It's easy to grade a World Cup harshly in its opening days, because the problems are loud and the magic is quiet. The prices make headlines. A perfect night in a packed stadium just feels normal. So let's be honest, every World Cup has problems in its first week, and this one will fix some of them as it goes. The real question was never whether 2026 would stumble. It's whether the show is big enough to rise above it. So, the early verdict. The hype said this would be the greatest World Cup ever. The reality, in these opening days, is more sonest than that. The spectacle is real, and the scale is unmatched. But the cracks we've flagged for months are real too. The prices, the empty premium seats, the cost of simply getting there. Not a disaster. Not a flawless triumph. A magnificent tournament wrapped around some very modern problems. And that tension, between the football we love and the machine that now surrounds it, is exactly what makes this one worth watching closely. So I want your verdict, and I read every comment. Is the World Cup living up to the hype for you, or falling short of it? Which bothers you most, the prices, the logistics, or the empty seats the cameras keep finding? And which moment has already reminded you why this is the biggest tournament on Earth? Tell me below. If you want an honest week-by-week look at this World Cup, the crowds, the costs, the cities, and the stories nobody else is checking, a like genuinely helps, and you can follow the whole thing with us, all the way to the final on July 19th. Subscribe and come along. The hype made its promises. Now, one match at a time, the World Cup has to keep them, and we'll be here for every minute.